My name's Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is a video analysis, not a shoutcast, so there will be plenty of spoilers. I'm assuming you've watched the match, know the outcome, or don't care. I will be primarily looking at macro level play, looking a lot at team compositions, their win conditions, how not, and what needs to be done for teams to pull off these win conditions with the compositions they pick. I'll also talk a little bit about what champions would fit better into the compositions if it's important. And after that's done, I'll talk about individual matchups, some item choices, especially when it's relevant to the win or loss of the game, as well as some individual play. For this game, we have AHQ Esports Club against Edward Gaming. This is their second match of the group stages. Without further ado, let us get into picks and bans. On AHQ's side, we have very generic bans: Alistar, Zillion, Ryze. They're not big on playing these champions, and they are very strong in this first group stage. On Edward's Gaming side, they are allowed to do some more focus bans. They're targeting Westor with Fizz and Twisted Fate. They're also taking out Maokai because they know Prides likes to play him. That's why AHQ banned Ryze. They don't like to play that AP top on Ryze specifically. They'd rather play the tanky Maokai, but it gets knocked out. So picks: AHQ take Zed first. This is sort of a takeaway ban from you, as well as one of Westor's best champions. He really loves to play Zed. He likes these playmaker assassination champions, and so they end up first picking Zed. Edward Gaming grabbed Lucian and Kha'Zix. Lucian being a huge lane bully, he's a pretty solid pick no matter what the situation. In this game he does well. Could have been switched out for a longer range champion, but we'll talk about that later. Going on to AHQ's side, we see Lee Sin Thresh picked up. Lee Sin being one of the premier junglers, pretty much the pick you take if you don't get Kha'Zix, or if you pick Kha'Zix, you take the other team takes Lee Sin. If you take Lee Sin, the other team takes Kha'Zix. Very generic. We see this matchup the most out of any other matchup in the game during Worlds. Thresh is a great pickup, goes well with any team composition from the support side, allows playmaking. Everyone knows he's very strong overall. On EDG's side, we see Janna being picked up, Janna being one of the other premier supports in the 2014 Worlds. Very often wins games. Most of her losses are coming against Thresh, so this is a very good matchup for the supports. Edward Gaming also picked Lulu. They're one of the few teams that still run Lulu top. It's going to do well in this game. It's actually a flex pick right now. AHQ don't know if Lulu's going to be top or middle. I think they can make an assumption she's going to be top. However, it's still a flex pick and gives Edward Gaming a little bit of leeway. It's a great pickup against Zed. Her shields and her ultimate, especially combined with Janna, prevent a lot of the Zed assassination, especially in the mid game before he gets too strong. Some good synergy for protecting your ADC or your mid laner or whoever is getting targeted by Zed. On AHQ's side, we see Jinx and Kayle being picked up. We don't see Jinx all that often outside of the first group stage, but she's got her spot in this game. Jinx being a hyper carry, Kayle being a hyper carry. Jinx can get out a lot of damage from either safe range with her rockets or from a close range when Kayle uses intervention on her. If they're able to get reset, she has great chase potential against Edward Gaming's team. They're all fairly squishy and weak. This means if AHQ are able to get that one kill, she should be able to clean up. And last pick on Edward's Gaming side is Jace. Jace really rounds out their competition, solidifies their team composition as a siege comp. And I'll get into that as the game starts. Jace is also a great pick against Zed, especially since Zed's shadow no longer appears next to his target. This means Jace just needs to do a knockback. Zed loses out on a lot of his damage time. Zed really has to be tricky with both his shadows to be able to fight against Jace. On top of this, Jace is running into the match with exhaust. This gives EDG 2 exhaust, and it's very important against Zed. Just by running 2 exhausts, you have a huge shutdown potential on Zed's assassination ability in the mid game. You're sort of removing him from the map if he tries to, well, not from the map, you're removing him from team fights if he tries to fight the 5v5. I'm going to first talk about AHQ Esports Club's team. Their team is pretty generic. It's a scale composition. Jinx is a real good hyper carry into the late game, especially with her resets. Does well against squishy targets such as EDG's team, even though she's very vulnerable during the start of the game. Kale is also another one of those hyper carries. Takes him about 2 or 3 items to really come into his own. Especially in this game, we'll see him picking up Runan's Hurricane, which is a strong pickup for Kale in this matchup, particularly because they want to scale into the late game. Zed and Lee Sin allow AHQ some leeway in the mid game, and if AHQ need to rely on those 2 champions to make plays and bring AHQ into the late game, their win condition is going to be survive, get to the point where Jinx can take out EDG's team, where Kale going in with an intervention and a Hurricane is able to do massive damage, where his heals become enough to sort of negate Jace's poke. HQ won't really reach this point until about the 30-35 minute mark, so their goal is to survive, whereas Edward Gaming's goal is to win before this point in time. The big benefit that AHQ's team have, while they're pretty lacking in wave clear, which is an unfortunate situation. When you're going into these hyperscaling teams, you want wave clear. That way you can delay at your turns, you can last longer. Once Jinx gets her static shiv though, this will change. She'll be able to clear waves in about 2 or 3 hits, though she puts herself in a vulnerable position to do so. So it's not ideal for AHQ, but they do have some wave clear and ability to delay. What they do have during the mid game is a split push with Zed. He should be able to beat out Lulu easily. If he gets even a kill or 2 in the mid lane, then he can take out Jace. There's not too much worry coming in from Kha'Zix skanking him. There's no lockdown on EDG's side, which means Zed has very easy escape. So if AHQ can get him ahead, and Lee Sin should be looking to focus this for him, look for early ganks against Jace, maybe burn his flash and exhaust, that way Zed can go in at level 6. Otherwise, once Zed hits level 6, and around the 7 minute mark, it would be good for Zed and Lee Sin to start looking for kills onto Kha'Zix, as he'll be a much easier target for Zed than Jace. If HQ are able to generate the lead on Zed, he'll be able to split push. This forces EDG to have to react to pull offs and break up their siege composition. This will be the biggest way that AHQ can survive from the 15 minute mark on, and if Zed is able to cause enough delay, Kale and Jinx will be able to scale up. On EDG's side, we see them running a very, not necessarily a huge poke composition, more of a siege composition. Jace is the only one with some real long range poke. However, with Lulu's shield, with Janna's shield, it's very easy for EDG to siege. Janna and Lulu can toss both their shields onto Lucian. He can run up, double hit a tower, dash away, make sure he doesn't get caught. This will allow them to slowly whittle down. Jace can also whittle down turrets. You have 4 ranged champions, and then Kha'Zix has really good siege poke or disengage poke as well. So EDG have a very strong team for pushing turrets. This is also benefited by the fact that AHQ have a real lack of engage on their team. The only one who can really engage is Thresh or Zed. If Zed goes in, you have 2 exhausts on EDG's side. You just simply plan who's going to use it on him and rotate through them each time he tries to engage. The exhaust will pretty much stop Zed from being able to assassinate his target. If it's also necessary, you have Lulu ultimate, Lulu shield, Janna shield. There's a good extra like 1200 HP that should come out onto Zed's target. Thresh hooks are also something that EDG have to be very wary of, and we'll see that come into huge effect later on in this game. However, with Lucian's dash, if he's using it properly, he should never get hooked by Thresh. He should always be saving his dash for when he sees Thresh winding up his hook, and go for the least likely direction he's going to aim. Other than that, AHQ don't have the ability to engage onto EDG's team, and with Kha'Zix it allows them to disengage. Simply having that large AoE slow, that giant cone that he gets with his evolved spike racks, is going to be enough to stop Lee Sin, Zed, Jinx, Thresh from getting onto EDG's team. And they run back through an acceleration gate, it's even better. Even though EDG lack hard disengage, they do have the slows and the speed ups that allow them to disengage. This goes doubly well with Janna's passive, and without hard engage on AHQ, this actually works out. One of the big things EDG have to realize is that their power spike is going to come in the mid game. Around the 15-16 minute mark, they're going to be much stronger than AHQ. When Jace finishes up his Miramane around the 22 minute mark, that's probably going to be their strongest window this entire match. What this means is from about the 15-minute mark, maybe even earlier, they need to group up and they need to start sieging, and they need to keep the pressure on constantly. Move from turret to turret to turret, never pause. Every second that they are not pushing, not taking dragon, not doing something, anytime they're just simply farming lanes or jungle, they're wasting their advantage and they're allowing AHQ windows into the game. Whenever you are the team who is not going to scale better, you have to recognize that you are on a timer. And if you let this timer expire, it's most likely that you're going to lose the game. This is doubly important for Siege and poke compositions, as they're not very good in the straight up 5v5s. When they fall hard. So what EDG can do to facilitate this early game lead to get into the Siege composition is just kind of play safe. They need to not lose out in lane, that way they can transition into that mid game. It's going to be a lot of benefit on the bottom lane. Janna, Lucian are very strong. Jinx is lacking in any type of level 1 ability. She can pick up her rockets, but Lucian just walks in and attacks him, gets the Janna shield to block out an auto attack or two. Makes it very easy for Lucian to be the bully in the bottom lane. Even as the levels progress, Lucian's abilities are very much more combat oriented. Jinx has zap, is a long poke, it's hard to hit because of its channel time. It actually isn't completely efficient when using in combat. Same thing with her chompers, they're a little bit hard to hit. Lucian can just walk past them. There's a lot more skill damage on EDG's side in the bottom lane, and they should be looking to use that to their advantage in this matchup. With Lucian generating a solid mid-game lead against the bottom lane, EDG can transition to second dragons, third buffs in AHQ's jungle. This would be a great place for them to put pressure, get wards out in the jungle, let Chase poke, keep up the pressure, don't let AHQ take their buffs, and then wait for the opportunity to move in and steal them. As we do see EDG doing here, they're putting pressure on them already, and this is only the second round of buffs. It's very good play by them, it really allows control. On top of the early game and mid game power of Lucian, Jace is also very strong in the early mid game, very powerful poke, very powerful engages. He does a lot of damage with his burst with his hammer. He does a lot of damage with shock blast bursts. Shock blast ending up at one of its strongest scaling points at level 9, even though it does get a little bit stronger as its acceleration gate is level 2. Lulu as well hits very big mid-game power spike when she gets her ultimate. It generally provides more benefit than Kale's intervention does, being a more consistent HP advantage than Kale's intervention, as well as providing the slow and the knock-up. This changes as Kale's intervention later on in the game gains more time. It's able to block out more damage, whereas Lulu's ultimate is simply gaining more HP to scale with the higher damage that's going out in the game. Kale's ultimate blocks more damage simply because it's invulnerability and then time scaling. So while everyone gets more and more damage, even if it didn't scale in time, it would be blocking more and more. Also because of this, Lulu hits a bigger spike with just Athene's, whereas Kale with his Naturus 2 still needs to get those consistent auto swings. He doesn't have burst, he doesn't have very good chase potential unless he's using his W on himself. He's weak if his ult isn't on himself. There's just more options for EDG's team in the mid game. As long as they can avoid Zed and Lee Sin, they should be able to come out ahead and be in control. And here we see EDG going for Dragon. They're very quick at it, especially with an AD middle of Jace. They know they're more powerful and they saw the opportunity. If AHQ had really tried to fight for that instead of just trying to get a sneaky steal, Lucian Janna could have turned on Thresh Jinx. They had the double exhaust if necessary. You can exhaust Zed, exhaust Lee Sin, or Jinx, and you really gain yourself an advantage. So EDG are playing properly right now. Big thing to note, Jace is picking up his tier. In a couple other games we see Jace not picking up a tier as his first item. It's really a massive benefit for Jace to pick up his tier. He generally doesn't want to duel, and by picking up the tier he's able to spam his skills without worry, take out the mid wave much quicker, put on a lot more pressure with his pokes. It just gives more options. So right now everything's kind of going according to plan for EDG. They are a kill behind, but it's not that big a deal. They have more CS in top, mid, and bottom, as well as having gotten the dragons and having taken a couple buffs from AHQ. All the pressure is on EDG's side, and this is what they need to have. They're moving into that 15-minute mark. Around the 15-minute mark is when they should really be looking for group up siege. And they can either do this in small numbers or big numbers. It really depends on what they want to do. Kha'Zix and Jace can push out middle lane very well. Even just Jace and Kha'Zix can probably take out the middle turret, as long as they're warding up for Thresh and for Lee Sin and prepared for the Kale teleports. But Lulu is very good at taking out teleports. She has 2 skills: the knock up, the polymorph. She can also flash if necessary. As long as she can keep an eye out on Kale, Jace and Kha'Zix could siege up middle and just prevent Zed from taking out the melee wave and the ranged wave in the middle, and they can put damage onto the turret. This would allow Janna and Lucian to keep Thresh and Jinx at the bottom. If Thresh ever left, this would allow them to take the turret. EDG don't actually do this, but I would have really liked to see it. It does put Kha'Zix a little bit behind, but the point of EDG's team, and the point of any poke and siege composition, is to draw the other team to turrets, prevent them from being able to generate gold in the jungle, generate gold in the other lanes. And if they do try and defend man down, take the turret, move on to the next one, get that map pressure advantage. So we do see now Kha'Zix and Jace are here. Kha'Zix doesn't stick around very long. He's going to start moving to the jungle. It was an opportunity for them to get good damage onto the turret, especially now that Thresh is here. This would also let Lucian Janna get the bottom turret. At this point in time, EDG really need to get a turret, and as soon as they do, they can rotate from one to the next to the next. So we'll wait for that. On AHQ side, they're doing a great job right now. They've defended all the turrets. They've gotten the kills. They did lose out on the dragon, unfortunately, and CS is a little bit rough, but Jinx has stayed pretty much on par with Lucian, especially being the weaker laner. Kale's almost gotten to his Gnasher's Tooth. This will allow him to fight Lulu very well. He's also taken the turret. We've got good pressure from Lee Sin up top. Lee Sin's the one who kind of needs to facilitate this mid game right now, and he's doing it correctly. So as far as AHQ's plan, doing good. They're keeping the lanes going. They're drawing this game out. They haven't lost a turret yet. That's their goal. They're not. That's their goal. As long as they can keep this up, the longer they draw out the laning phase, the better for them. So while we wait for EDG to get their first turrets and start off their push, I'll talk a little bit about lane matchups. And we'll start in the top lane, Lulu versus Kale. This is very much a neutral lane. Neither one actually has kill pressure on each other. If Lulu tries to go in, Kale can Q her and then heal himself. You get the slow on Lulu. Kale gets the speed up and the heal out. He runs away. Same thing for Kale. Kale tries to go in on Lulu. Lulu gets the slow on to Kale, gets the speed up on herself, runs away. As we've seen several times through this game, Lee Sin is ganking top a lot, and this really works out in Kale's favor, and it would work out for Lulu's favor too if Kha'Zix were to attack Kale. The big thing is, alone they only have the one slow, which means the other champion just has to wait for the slow to wear off, trade their own slow, and speed up to get away. However, when you have the jungle gank, you have two slows, and this really hampers either champion's ability to escape. By chaining the slows together, you prevent the speed up from the other top laner, and you keep them down and allow the damage to come out to get the kill. This is one of the reasons why top laners with dashes are a little bit safer. They can deal with the double slows coming out from jungler and from top. But this also means that champions like Lulu and Kale are a little bit better against hard CC, because they take the hard CC and the slow, and then they can get away afterwards. It's sort of a trade-off up there. Unfortunately, we haven't seen Kha'Zix go top at all. I really would have liked to have seen him try and do something against Kale. Lee Sin's making his presence known a whole lot more in this match. He also hasn't pushed towers middle, which as mentioned before, would have been very nice. Him and Jace could have just poked and sieged out the middle turret all by themselves. If Lee Sin, it would have drawn Lee Sin to the middle, and Lee Sin wouldn't have really had a good opportunity to get in, considering there's an exhaust on Jace. EDG are a little bit lucky here. We have Lee Sin and Thresh looking to get the dragon. They don't go in, and everyone just backs off on AHQ's team. Zed leaves middle. Lee Sin and Thresh go back to base. Jinx is at the bottom. EDG kind of get that mid turret for free. It really shouldn't have happened. AHQ need to defend all their turrets as much as possible to draw out this game. So it's a little bit of a luck for EDG, but very good of them to recognize that it was takeable, that nobody was defending it. They do move top now. They get the top turret, or all of them. They should get the top turret here, or if not, they'll get it very soon on the next wave, or whenever they decide to come back. Zed has moved into a split push situation, and this is very smart of Zed. He is doing very well. He's got armor penetration, boots of mobility, and his Bilgewater Cutlass. He's got a lot of strength, especially going up against Lulu, who's been picked on, who's only got magic resist and no armor. By him split pushing, it forces EDG to respond, delaying the push by EDG's side. So Zed should be constantly doing this right now. Instead of looking to fight the 5v5 fights, he needs to make sure that he's always in one of the side lanes pushing, or when EDG are in the side lanes, then he needs to go up to the mid, try and take out the middle turret. It's going to be very important for him to draw members of EDG out of the siege and poke comp, especially because as strong as Zed is with his Brutalizer Blade of the Rune King, he's going into 2 shields, HP buff, and 2 exhausts. So there's not much he can do in the 5v5. So by recognizing that he's essentially useless in the 5v5, he needs to go to the lanes and draw EDG away. So here we see EDG now have taken the outer turrets of AHQ. This is very good. This is what they needed to do. Unfortunately, they haven't done it as a siege composition. They just kind of happenstanced into them. The mid turret, and the mid turret especially, the top turret was forced down by Lucian. The problem is we're not seeing Jace make his presence known against turrets. What EDG should be doing right now, the third round of buffs are coming up. Oh, maybe it's the fourth round, I lost track. But with this next round of buffs, especially getting the blue buff onto Jace, they need to go make a concerted effort at mid turret, top turret, bottom turret. They need to be looking to attack these secondary turrets. They have the team for it. Drop back to base, make sure you pick up some wards, and then head into the turret of your choice. EDG have all the advantages in this. They have solid poke and slow from Kha'Zix. We all know Jace's poke is extremely strong. He's past level 9. He's almost maxed on acceleration, gate, and shock blast. So there's all the power they can want. They've also picked up Last Whisperer, 3 brutalizers. They need to use this early game power that they've built and take down turrets. This means grouping up as 5 and sieging, constantly trying to force AHQ into these 5v5 fights. Like I said, they're going into these Wraith Bush. It's nice to take these little advantages, but there's no reason for this. They need that pressure, and they should be constantly getting it. Lulu can help this out. We know that AHQ don't have any real big wave clear. Lulu tossing out her shield onto the first or second creep minion allows her to get off her Q for poke, and this would help out a lot. See here we see Lucian dashes away from the turret, and he really shouldn't. Chompers had this set up time. He was on the edge. He could have walked away, got off a couple of hits, waited to back up with his dash. Here we also see EDG. Some of their champions are moving out to the sides. They really shouldn't. They just need to focus. They have to focus. There's no reason for them to be elsewhere in this game. And there's a little bit of a communication error. These 4 want to go middle. Lulu was looking for the top turn that wave. And nobody takes any damage on this turret. It's unfortunate. If they get the creep wave in, they need to take the damage. And a lot of this is going to be on Lucian. When the creep wave reaches the turret, Janna and Lulu need to both put their shields onto Lucian. Lucian goes forward, takes 2 shots, maybe a third one, backs out with his dash, especially if Thresh hooks. He should be pretty safe against Zed engage at this point, as we've mentioned before, due to the double shields and due to the double exhausts. Unfortunately, EDG, they make a small, very weak attempt at it. Then they back off, they go shop, and now they're going back to lanes. They had maybe another good minute or 2 that they could have waited before they went and shopped, before these creep waves get to their tower. Even if the creep waves do get to their tower, while they all are losing out on a bit of gold, by being 5-man, they draw AHQ into turret defense and make them lose out on the side wave gold as well. Okay, the split point of this is Zed. Like I said before, he has no business being in the 5v5. He should always be split pushing in the lane. This does draw Lulu top instead of them being grouped as 5. At this point, right now, Lucian should push out this wave. In the next wave, Lulu rushes to the top. They all either meet up middle or top after this. They need to get back into that siege potential. With Zed top, Lulu can still fight him and be fine. She should be safe under the turrets. She just needs to be prepared with her teleport to hit middle if he disappears. And Zed being the only one on an AHQ side who has the damage to kill Lucian through Janna's shield, through exhaust or something. And even though this is going to be very difficult, Jinx doesn't have the burst, neither does Kayle, especially because he's going Runan's Hurricane on Kayle. He's going to be lacking out on the burst from, say, a Death Kappa or Lich Bane, which is perfectly fine. I approve of Runan's Hurricane. In this match, he's going for that hyper carry build. When they get that 5v5 fights later on, he's going to be demolishing EDG's team. It's been about 5 or 6 minutes since EDG have taken an outer turret, or finished taking the outer turrets, and this is a big problem. You can't wait this long to move on to the next objective. They're wasting huge amounts of time when they could be stuck at a turret trying to take it down, moving into AHQ's base. I'm going to talk a little bit about items real quick, because there's two very important things to mention on EDG's team. Janna has gone Magi Soul Stealer, and I have to mention this every time. Magi Soul Stealer is not a good buy, especially in this high level play. There's very few situations and when it's appropriate, and we see the Jannas this group stage picking up way too much. The reason why it's even more of a bad pickup in this matchup is EDG is running a Siege poke comp, and Siege poke comps generally don't get a lot of kills. Their focus is on objectives and on denial, not on getting kills. So this makes it a bad pickup for Janna. It's very unlikely that she's going to be generating stacks. We've seen some matches in the North American LCS where the game will end in like two to three kills. Because these Siege and poke compositions aren't looking for the kills, but rather taking these objectives and denying the other team a window into the game. This is going to become very much more important later on. Janna should be picking up a Mikhail's Crucible at this point in time, because one of the only ways that AHQ really get into this game is by Thresh hooks. Thresh hook onto Jace, onto Lucian, is going to allow Zed to jump in, get his damage kill, runs in, gets his burst off with his Q and his E. It locks up a target long enough for AHQ to kill it, and EDG's targets are all squishy. So another point of reason as to why Janna wants to pick up a Mikhail's is she wants to use it on the Thresh hook so that Jace and Lucian can grab Quicksilver Sashes and use it to deny Zed's ultimate. This is a really big concept to understand. Is Quicksilver Sash Quicksilver Sash and Mercurial Scimitar will remove Zed's ultimate, which can end up denying Zed 1000+ damage. Mikhail's Crucible, however, will not deny Deathmark, as well as that HP bonus, just giving Zed more damage for the Deathmark to proc. So, not picking up a Mikhail's, especially early on, really comes back to bite EDG in the butt, and you'll see that later around the 40-minute mark. Essentially, it could be the entire reason why EDG lose this match. Another note to make is on Lucian. Lucian goes Infinity Edge, Yomos Ghostblade, and this is a pretty normal build. It gives him a lot of mid-game power. Unfortunately, it's very much a fight build. With that build, you want to get into these small skirmishes, you want to brawl, you want to get the 5v5 team fights, get out that quick damage and movement ability, as well as have that early damage potential from the armor penetration. However, since EDG is running a Siege poke comp, once again, same thing with Magi Soul Stealer, we don't see a lot of fights. EDG do not want to get into the 5v5 fight, they don't want to start it, they want to simply Siege and poke, whittle down AHQ's defenses. AHQ, on the same hand, they don't want a 5v5 fight because they are a scaling team rather than a skirmish mid-game team at this point. So neither team wants to fight, so neither Magi Soul Stealer nor this Yomos Ghostblade is a really good pickup. The Infinity Edge is fine, however, Lucian could have picked up a Bloodthirster, and especially if he had picked up a Bloodthirster instead of the Infinity Edge, instead of the Yomos Ghostblade, even instead of the Last Whisper. There's no armor. There's only one piece of armor on AHQ's side. Kaele's not going to build it. Zed's not going to build it. Jinx isn't going to. Thresh might, but it's going to take him a while. So it's only Lee Sin, and he's not that huge a threat for Lucian. What Lucian should have done is the Last Whisper or even the Yomos should have been a Bloodthirster. This gives him more shield, more AD damage, allows him to hit these turrets at much safer situation. With the Bloodthirster shield, Janna shield, Lulu shield, Lucian should have about a good 1,000 to 1,200 HP even at the 25-minute mark. It's a huge boon. Allows him to take a couple hits from Jinx, from Kayle, and then when Thresh tries to hook, he dashes out. So take note of that. Your item choices are actually very important in siege situations, especially when you're a low range ADC like Lucian. This could also work out for champions like Severe, Misfortune, and any others who were just really short. Even Vayne would benefit from a Bloodthirster against turrets because they're more damage in the siege. You really want to bring Vayne into a siege situation, but it's the same kind of concept. Short range ADC, pick up the Bloodthirster so you do more damage on those 1 or 2 hits you get onto the turret, and so you're safe enough to take a shot from the turret or from the enemy champions. This also allows when you back up for the next wave, you can heal through whatever damage you've taken, rinse and repeat. So that's the one thing EDG could have done, particularly in Lucian, that would allow them to keep up the mid-game bully champion, as well as have some better siege potential. The other option on the ADC side is to pick up one with longer range. We all know how good Caitlyn is at taking down turrets. Also could have been Kog'Maw. They even could have taken Jinx away from the AHQ. But that wouldn't give them as strong of a mid and early game bully potential. So as the game progresses, it's 31 minutes now, and EDG have just now broken the tier 2 line in the middle and the middle inhibitor turret. They finally started sieging. However, the problem is they didn't start the siege until about 28 minutes. And like mentioned before, they needed to start it around the 15-minute mark, especially strong during the 20-minute mark when Jace is picking up his mirror mana. They had this window of opportunity to take out side turrets in the tier 2, or even to push middle like they have been, and they just didn't take it. The reason why the 15-minute and 20-minute mark would be so important is because once Jinx starts scaling, she can take out a creep wave fairly easily. She gets the Infinity Edge and Static Shiv. She shoots the front melee lines. If she gets a crit, that one shot is going to take out the entire front line, if not just needing one more rocket. It makes it really hard for EDG to siege without the Bloodthirster shields, without the Janna shields and everything. So this is a reason why they should have ramped up their speed and taken to the siege much earlier. This would have also caused Jinx to have a longer delay in getting to her Static Shiv. So that's what EDG should have done. So take note, sometimes it is more beneficial for you as a team to start your 5v5 siege on one item builds. You don't always need to wait until you have 2 items where you get a bigger spike. Sometimes just having the one item is enough. Also, Kayle now has his Hurricane. This really helps in wave clear as well, giving himself a speed boost. He can get to that back line of range creeps, take one or two hits, back off really fast. They have AHQ now have some wave clear through their items rather than through their champions, so it's very good pickups. And here we see AHQ are making a very aggressive move. EDG backed off low after that middle turret, and so AHQ start to push. So they went towards the middle turret. They were able to get it. Now instead of backing, which is something that EDG probably would have expected, they have moved through the top jungle of EDG and taken out Lulu. One big thing to note is when a team is pushing like a siege comp or a poke comp, generally their wards are always in your side of the jungle. This is why AHQ were able to move through the through the blue side of EDG's jungle unnoticed and get to kill Lulu and move into the second tier turret, even pushing up against the inhibitor turret. Unfortunately, AHQ put a little too much emphasis on this push. They're really trying to make a good play, trying to pull EDG back, but Jace is smart enough to stay middle. He knows that EDG had 2 turrets before the inhibitor, whereas AHQ had an open inhibitor. This allowed Jace to take the open inhibitor to make a favorable trade, and because EDG were able to defend, and by a little bit of misplays by AHQ don't even get the inhibitor turret. One of these misplays of AHQ is, if you go back and you want to look at it, Thresh gets the hook onto Kha'Zix, but Jinx is focusing all her damage onto Lulu. If the team had focused some damage onto Lulu, they could have got the kill and the reset. If Jinx had focused on Kha'Zix, would have ended up killing Kha'Zix, then could have gone onto the turret. They essentially missed out on 2 kills because of a split focus. If they had gotten these 2 kills, AHQ could have gotten the mid, or could have gotten the bottom turret, potentially the inhibitor. And this is a great boon because it gives them the bot lane advantage on super creep push far away from Baron. So EDG lucked out a little bit, and I keep saying lucked out because they're not playing their composition properly. They didn't start it until the 28-29 minute mark, as mentioned before. But they did luck out and they got the middle inhibitor. This gives them a lot more pressure on the map. This Baron is going to be fairly easy, especially when they see Kayle bottom. All EDG have to do is wait around, get some poke with Lulu, with Jace, and wait for a good opportunity to do Baron. Because they're all damage focused, they're really going to melt it. And here we see that they pushed them out enough, they've taken the vision, they start Baron, and they destroy it before AHQ are able to respond. That's very well played. I'm also going to point out, Janet picks up an Ardent Sensor. This is a bad choice. You know what she's thinking? She's thinking, okay, I can give my ADC the shield. This will allow him to get an extra hit or 2 on the turret. But it's really too late for that. The turret pushing should have come earlier, and Ardent Sensor isn't likely to give an extra hit. The reason being, your ADC wants to go in, take his 2 shots, especially on Lucian, then back out. Whittle it down rather than sitting there and trying to kill it. This is also big because picking up the Ardent Sensor means she didn't pick up on the Kayles. And very soon we're going to see that come into play. On EDG's side, I really like the pickup of the Mercurial Scimitar from Jace, and I like the pickup of Zhonya's from Lulu, and especially the Lich Bane. And I forgot to mention the Lich Bane earlier, but the Lich Bane is a great pickup because as EDG is a siege composition, this allows Lulu to get some good damage onto turrets as well. Speed in with her W, take 1 shot, back up. This is what EDG needed to do. They needed to have Jace, Lulu, and Lucian all go in for that 1 hit, back up every single time a creep wave was there. Also, the pickup of Zhonya's does great, denying Zed his ultimate. So now Zed essentially has 1 target. He has to target Lucian. And this works in Lucian's favor because this means that Lulu, Janna, all be focusing their shields onto Lucian. He gets a nice extra say 12 to 1500 HP boost from these shields, including Bloodthirster. One thing to note, the creep waves right now, bottom lane for EDG is pushing. Mid lane has super creeps. EDG should not be going... Inhibitor just respawned. So, bottom lane of EDG is pushing. And it's going to move and take in that turret. So EDG can just kind of wait things out. They take this very slowly, get some minor damage onto the inhibitor, get it to add up. See this? That was very good. Lulu gets a hit, Lucian gets 2 hits, Jace gets a hit, they back out. This is what needs to continue happening. Get the 1 hit, back out. The bottom wave will push, it'll reach the turret, it'll draw some aggro from AHQ, or they have to let their turret take a lot of damage. Now with the middle inhibitor down and the bottom wave pushing, they can do the same thing. They can either decide to go take the bottom T2 turret, which is a little late for that. It does give them more map pressure, a little bit more map pressure. However, it doesn't generate the gold advantage or the pressure advantage that it would have, say, 10 minutes ago. So going top is the much better choice. It forces AHQ to just let that creep wave be, and they have to focus up here. So EDG can essentially get that bottom turret just by creep waves. However, as said, it's really not that important at this time. There's also no reason for Lulu to be sitting here middle. They already have the turret, they have the super creeps coming. She needs to get up here and get some damage onto this turret. She's lost out on about 2 or 3 hits onto this turret. This is actually going to become important. Lucian does well, he gets a huge culling, gets a lot of damage. However, it gives him a little bit too much of a confidence boost, I think. And here's where we're going to see Thresh's hook come into play, the lack of Quicksilver Sash on Lucian, and the lack of Mikhail's Crucible on Janna. Going back to the earlier point, if Lucian had just first picked up Bloodthirster instead of Infinity Edge, or Bloodthirster instead of Yomo's Ghostblade, he could have been working on that, had that 4th item, Mercurial Scimitar, already, and that would have been a huge boon. When Lucian gets caught, I want you to watch where he dashes. He's going to dash up and to the left instead of just up and to the right. The reason I mention this is because he's dashing closer to Thresh's hook rather than just straight out outranging it. He's trying to juke it, but Thresh is smart enough. He throws to where Lucian could dash instead of throwing it directly at Lucian. If Lucian had just dashed up and to the right, he would have been out of range of the hook anyways. So here we see he gets hooked. No Mikhail's, no Mercurial Scimitar means he gets annihilated. Even through 2 exhausts, through 2 shields and Lulu ultimate, it's just too much for him. At this point, AHQ's team, it's the 40-minute mark. They have reached into their hyperscale potential, and there's just way too much damage. EDG do make good plays as they run away. Lulu teleports in to get some Nexus turret damage. This essentially draws AHQ away from being able to fast push. If they could have rushed middle, but because Lulu is there, it's forcing AHQ to lose maybe an extra 3-4 seconds. And this is helpful. It gives Kha'Zix time to get back, also gives Lulu time to get back. But looking at the items, I'm going to notice Kayle has his Zhonya's, and Zhonya's Runuin's Hurricane, Nashor's Tooth. This gives him a good amount of burst, and that was big against Lucian. The bigger thing is, though, that Zed, he got in, he used his Blade of the Rune King after Lulu ultimate, and then the Jinx rocket for the execute comes in and is massive. It was just really well played, and the hook by Thresh allowed Jinx to get off some solid shots. The Guardian Angel by Zed is also a great pickup, simply because it sort of gives him double invulnerability. He's the only engage on AHQ's side. He's the one who's going to go in, so he needs something to pull him back up. He's going to draw the full aggro of EDG's team and essentially get blown up really fast. At this point, AHQ were the stronger 5v5 team. Kayle is really going to do a number with this Hurricane. Jinx has gotten her 4 items. She's got massive range. She's got huge damage. She gets the resets off the first kill. Just a lot going for AHQ, and there's not much EDG can do now in the fight. They have to force AHQ back into this poke situation and just try and wait it out. The big problem is AHQ has gotten their mid inhibitor respawn. Baron's up, and Baron is now a giant aggro button in this game. Both teams able to take it in about 15-20 seconds, so we'll see a lot of vision fight over that. Once again, Janna's still not building towards Mikhail's. We see her getting a blasting wand. This is just silly. Not that she would have the time to build her Mikhail's at this point in the game, but if she really had been thinking, she could have sold her Magi, not bought the blasting wand, and even if necessary, sold her Frost Queen's claim. Here we see another hook onto Lucian, and he just gets annihilated. He saves his Quicksilver Sash for the Zed ultimate, which is the smart move, but there's just too much damage from AHQ. EDG can't get away. Once again, if Janna had a Mikhail's, there was another opportunity for her to use it. She could have saved Lucian's life. Lucian shouldn't be getting hooked, though. But that doesn't excuse picking up an item that can essentially save your high damage dealer from an oops moment. So now with those 3 kills, AHQ make the proper decision. They know they're stronger, they have tons of damage, they can annihilate EDG's base, they don't bother with Baron, they just go straight for the win. This is something that you should also recognize is when you're this late in the game, you have the really long death timers, you can go take out a base instead of worrying about the near objective. It is very close. Lulu's able to do the damage, they ignore him, but AHQ were able to come out with the win. So, just to reiterate points and consolidate them from the game, EDG should have won this match. It was theirs to win, and they had full control for a long period of time in the game. However, they took too long to pull off their team composition. Their middle turret and the top turret were outer turrets were more happenstance than forced. They did well in recognizing when they could take them, but they did not make them happen on their own. This led into a good 10-minute lull where they only pushed the mid tier 2 once, getting maybe a third damage down onto it. Every time they went to go in with their siege poke composition, they never stayed long enough. They were only at the turret for maybe 2 waves. They never completely drew AHQ into the fight. They never took the time needed for Jace to get his poke off to whittle down AHQ's team. If they had spent a good 2 to 3 minutes, maybe even 5 if necessary, they could have kept AHQ stuck in one spot, delayed AHQ getting gold, and eventually taken down the turrets. They also could have facilitated this with a longer range ADC, picking up Caitlyn or Kog'Maw, been easier and safer to hit the turrets. We don't know if they actually were going into the game deciding to play this type of composition, though that's what they ended up with. Inside the game, Lucian could have built better, picking up a Bloodthirster early, even instead of the Infinity Edge, simply because of the composition they're running. They're not trying to fight AHQ's team, so they should be building towards turret damage instead of champion damage. The Bloodthirster would have allowed Lucian to take 1 or 2 more hits earlier on. EDG could have pushed faster. The other big thing is that his Quicksilver Sash was pretty late. If he had picked up a Bloodthirster earlier, or he could have dropped the Last Whisper and just picked up the Quicksilver Sash first. This would have saved him in the Thresh Hook on the bottom lane. Also, we see Janna picking up Magi Soul Stealer in a game that's not going to have many kills, as well as picking up an Ardent Sensor when they really needed that Mikhail's. To reiterate the point of Mikhail's, use Mikhail's on the Thresh Hook. This allows Lucian and Jace to use their Quicksilver Sashes on the Zed ultimate. So I hope you've taken away from this game, when you have a siege poke composition, when you have the mid-game power, you can't dilly-dally around. You have to have a clear plan of what you're going to do and stick to it. Remember, whenever you're drawing the other team to have 3 or 4 people defending a turret, even though you're not generating as much gold as well, neither are they. And this means you're delaying the timer for the other team to outscale you. Because they are taking longer to get gold, you are staying in your mid-game power spike longer. Props to AHQ for doing proper defense. Love the Runaan's Hurricane pickup, allows easier wave clear. Jinx did well getting that static shiv. EDG really should have been pushing before that situation. And big props to Thresh getting the proper hooks. With that, that's the end of this match. That's the end of my analysis. I hope it was informative, and if not, I hope it was entertaining. So once again, the notes for this match can be found below, as well as a link to my portal page for all of my 2014 League of Legends World Championship notes and video analysis. I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.